good old Rupert just keeps the hits going, because Rupert is claiming that Ethiopia and Egypt has this shared history, and that according to some information that I don't know, I don't think he realized where it comes from, and I'm going to tell you where it comes from, that Moses spent 40 years in Ethiopia before he went back to Egypt. And I'll tell you where those 40 years are part of the life of Moses based on what Rupert is saying. And he's also using as his claim the Ten Commandments movie, where Moses told Pharaoh that I brought you Ethiopia, not as a servant, but as a friend. But before I go any further, this video is sponsored by.
Reading Life After Religion is like learning the truth about somebody you've been in a relationship with for a long time. You have to reevaluate everything. But now, you also have a choice to make. You can either choose to stay, and in that case, everything goes back to the way it always was. Or, you can choose to leave, and in that case, everything changes.
So Bruce Fuller's book is now available for you on Amazon. I want you to go there right now, scan in that QR code, and purchase this brother's book, as Bruce Fuller tells you about his journey and how he restored himself and healed himself. So stop what you're doing, go get that book, and then come back and check out this video. So where does Rupert get this idea from? I'm not even going to consider the fact that he is basing it off of the Pharaoh and this Ten Commandment movie. We're going to go directly to where I hope that he intelligently got this information from, which most likely he would have gotten it from the Midrashes. This is something that is taught in the Hebraic history concerning the life of Moses. So in the Midrashes, it talks about how Moses was made into a general within Egypt, a general over the Egyptian army. And in that time frame that he went down into Ethiopia, conquered much of Ethiopia, and became their king for a while. And while he was their king, Moses also married an Ethiopian princess named, I'm going to say it wrong, but it's like Theopis. But he married an Ethiopian royalty, and that was his wife. Now, this is all in the Midrashes. Where would why? And many people believe this and think that he did. But I want you to consider something for a second. There is absolutely nothing in your Bible that would suggest that Moses went into Ethiopia during the time for the 40 years of his upbringing. So he would have to have grown up into a man. And then after becoming a man, let's say 20 years old, then he would have went into into Ethiopia, conquered in Ethiopia, then reigned for 40 years in Ethiopia, returned back to Egypt, then killed a Jewish man, an Ethiopian over him beating a Jewish man, and then ran away into the wilderness. So that means that he left his wife, to which his wife would have been a political wife anyway, but he left his wife and ran away from his responsibilities in Egypt and responsibilities towards his wife, and then got into the land of Midian and met his wife and married his Midianite wife. So then Moses would have been practicing still polygamy. Even though one was a political relationship, it was still polygamy, which was common in every era up until more recent times, where people married for political gain, political reasonings, not out of love. But he still would have been practicing polygamy if this story was true. But upon his return to Egypt, he mentions nothing about having this wife. Now, another person in the comments had mentioned that in Numbers 12, it says that that Miriam and Aaron spoke against his Ethiopian wife. But if you go look at Numbers 12, that is completely incorrect. It specifically says it spoke against his Midianite wife, that he had married this Midianite woman. which also implies that he married someone outside of his tribal connections, which is something that the Bible forbids, that you go marry outside of the Israelite community. You weren't supposed to mix it up like that, but he does marry someone who is outside of his tribe twice, according to the midrashes and according to the actual what's in your canonized Bible. So this is the first flaw, that you're getting this from the midrashes, and that he abandoned his wife. They probably had children. He was there for 40 years, so he abandoned his kids. But that's a possibility. But the whole story is a false story in the first place. You may go and look and see where it talks about that there was a 3rd century Jewish historian who wrote that Moses had ruled Ethiopia for 40 years and that he had married this woman, therapist, something like that, that he had married her. We're going to call her T, that he had went and married T. Josephus later makes a similar claim, and it's most likely Josephus is making this claim based on what the 3rd century historian, Jewish historian, his name starts with an A, it's like the Antiochus, that he wrote. That he would be, that Josephus most likely based it on that. And then when Irenaeus wrote about it, he was basing it on Josephus. And then when Eusebius of Caesarea wrote about it in the 4th century, he was basing it on what was written by Irenaeus, which Irenaeus was writing this almost 100 years after Josephus had died. And he is basing it on Josephus. Josephus is basing it on 3rd century historian. And this gentleman is basing it on a midrash. We have no idea what resources were available to them that they wrote this story, that they believed that this was actually a reality. But when a story is told for hundreds of years and repeated, it can become true simply because people believe it, but it doesn't make it factually true. And for all accounts of your Bible with this mythical character of Moses, there's absolutely no proof that Moses actually exists. So even if it's written in the midrashes, even if it's written by these different historians, they are writing it based on belief of their religion, and then then that belief becomes solidified by historians saying that this was a true account. The question is, no one would have been there to verify that in the 14 or 1500s, which would be the time frame of 1500s BCE, which would be the time frame for Moses, that any of these things happened. You would think that the Egyptians would have recorded that Moses went down and ruled Ethiopia for 40 years. People often complain that Egyptians didn't write about a lot of their defeats, but they certainly wrote about their conquests. And we do not see in any form or fashion, no meta-natures that demonstrates where Moses went down into Ethiopia, ruled them for 40 years, and then returned. As a matter of fact, the land would not even have been called Ethiopia at that time frame. But we have no information from the Egyptians that this happened. We have no information from the people of Ethiopia, even when they were the Oxium Empire and when it was whatever empires, they were the Kushite Empire. No information whatsoever did this ever happen. And as far as him marrying this Ethiopian princess, absolutely not. There is no information, no verification of that. So your thought process on this is purely speculation and belief. And it's because you believe something, you are trying to force it into being truth, force it into fitting your narrative, which only reinforces your cognitive dissonance and your bias towards your religion. These things didn't happen. And if you're going to base it off of the movie 10 Commandments, that just discredited your whole thing, my guy. I'm going to be honest with you. You should have left that comment out about the movie The 10 Commandments, because it is not within your Bible at all. And let's not forget, when Aaron and Miriam spoke against Zipporah, Aaron didn't get punished. Only the woman, Miriam, was punished with leprosy. This guy does not like women at all. So y'all Always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.